Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In this video we are going to take a close look at the new 4K Game Stick Lite, or they also call this the Super Pro version, because it comes with some new, when I say features, but it comes in a different box. It looks more fancy than the previous ones, and it comes even with a 4-player configuration. So I was really curious, is it any good? Oh yeah, and I paid around $16 or $19 in the super sale, because also AliExpress have those. And for that money, I was thinking, let's pick it up, let's see if they improved it and is anything different. So first of all, the Game Stick, yeah, it looks kind of similar to the previous model, 4K Game Stick Lite with the HDMI dongle. You can just plug this in and ready to go, or at least they're plugged in, and then next we need to be putting in the micro USB cable that goes to a 5-volt USB device for giving it some juice. Over here we're having one dongle plugged in and ready to go. So this version comes with 4 controllers. Yeah, that's absolutely nuts. But it comes with, an USB hub. And the reason why, because we're only one USB on the Game Stick, so there was no other way to actually connect it. The second USB dongle is over there. We have an extension cord for the HDMI if you cannot plug it in straight into your monitor, and the micro USB cable. And the configuration, that's just an empty bag. The configuration is going to be 4 fake PlayStation controllers, and the overall quality is okay. You can feel the edges when holding it. So far they're quite sturdy, and they have very nice like rubberized joysticks. And the reason I'm saying rubberized joysticks, some of them are just like basic plastic, but the feel, no, it's not bad at all. So they work on two AAA batteries. And this thing doesn't have an on and off switch, so that's quite interesting. This is the first time that I've ever seen that, because after all of these reviews, most of them will have an on and off switch, and none of them will have this. So I'm curious how this is going to be configured. Will it automatically shut down and save some batteries, or is this going to be one disaster? Okay, in here we're having the toilet paper manual with some explanations about the Game Stick. The Game Stick Lite 4K seems to be the manual showcases still the same kind of manual, and manual with menu options and everything else. So let's put it up, let's put it back in. Later on we're going to be doing the 4-player configuration, but first let's show you how you need to set everything up, because maybe it's not clear for everybody. How do you need to do this? So like I mentioned before, this thing only comes with one USB, and if you want to have the 4-player configuration, so the first thing that we need to do, and yeah, this is going to be absolutely cable nightmare, we're going to plug this thing in. Now we're having enough USB ports. Plug in the first dongle over there, open up this piece of plastic, and let's get ourselves the extension, because I'm thinking that I cannot plug it in straight into it because these things are very wide. Next up we're going to be plugging in the USB cable, another adapter for the other set of controllers, because 2 controllers work throughout like one dongle. They work up 2.4 GHz, so there don't need to be a lot of, let's say, input lag due of, let's say, connection between the controller and the dongle. It is possible due of the emulator, but most of the people, including myself, will not really notice it. Okay, so that's actually the way. Next thing, plug it in. There we go, where it was. Oh, there he is. Let's plug this thing in, and that's it. That's how you need to connect this thing in your television. Some of the USBs can be used from your television or your monitor. If you don't have it, like, you just need to use a normal 5-volt. Let's say, I think it's a 1000, maybe best is 2000 milliamp, and that's it. It's connected, and you're ready to go. Man, what a mess. The Game Stick solution. Yeah, right. This is not a stick. This is like a spiderweb of cabling. So actually when plugging into the 5-volt, it will automatically boot up. If it doesn't, that will be a problem with your power input. So boot it up. Let's take a close look at the menu itself. But there's another thing I've also noticed with the controllers I wanted to quickly chit chat with you about. So there are a lot of like improvement, but also, let's say, different configurations. Where we're having normally like 2 LEDs with the older controllers, we don't have this anymore. We're having a tiny LED at the front. And yeah, it's not like really annoying, but it will shine into your face all the time. So when it comes to the configuration, and also now when you're going to be testing it, I don't notice any input lag when it comes to choosing a different system. So when the device is booted up, you can switch between, let's say, different menus with pressing L1 and R1. And also this is quite responsive. Where we had the older models, we had like a lot of like loading times. Over here it already had been set to the language, so if this had been set to Chinese or something else, it's going to be the final menu and the first, and here we can switch between the menu language. So here having the finding options, so let's see if this is going to be loading fast. Ooh, pressing the S, it almost freezes due of all the information that it needs to be loading up. So pressing left, you can go to the system itself, but unfortunately it doesn't show any, let's say, preview or what kind of, let's say, platform it is. So that's kind of annoying. Over here we're having the favorite history. You can check out what kind of games have been played. The different kind of platforms, having MAME, Famicom, Game Boy Classic Color, Advance, Mega Drive, Atari. And that's actually it. And another thing I've noticed that they didn't mess up the overall menu, because sometimes they completely have like different naming with a different kind of picture. So they also improved this, and so far so good. When you're looking into the menu, we have only pictures, no movies whatsoever. But I think they do this because to save up space, because most of these things will come with a 64 GB or 128 GB over storage capacity. Okay, so let's boot up a game, press select and start, and let's see what kind of options we're having. It's kind of unfortunate that there's hit or miss with these things, and I mean particularly when you're looking at, let's say, what kind of menu. There was no aspect ratio, so yep, they completely messed that part up again. So pressing the A, here we have an option to make a quick load, quick save, and go back to the menu. It's kind of weird, you know, it looks kind of weird. So let's make a save, let's boot it up. Let's go back to the menu. I'm guessing if pressing load, yep, there we go. There was no save slot whatsoever, so it's quite limited. No aspect ratio and no thing. Yeah, no. The emulation seems to be working correctly. No weird things going on over here. So when it comes to Neo Geo, that seems to be working just fine. Did notice some screen tearing going on the screen. So loadings time are instant, no weird things going on. Emulation seems to be working just fine. Great time to test out the D-pad. It works, but I really need to get used to it. But so far, good emulation with some screen tearing. Yeah, so you can exactly see the screen tearing with this too. Pressing like start, save kind of menu, there was nothing changed out here. Let's get into the gameplay itself. Sounds kind of speed up to me. That audio, horrible. But the unfortunate thing is, if you're getting into some Game Boy, come on, this is not the way how you want to play it. Widescreen shenanigans with... Yeah, no. And nope, there is no way of actually like changing that out. Game Boy Advance emulation on this is absolutely horrible. You can just hear from the audio that it's dipping every single time. Okay, so let's get into the gameplay. No weird thing going on. Let's boot into the game. Especially when you're just booting up the game, then you can just hear that it slows down. But getting into gameplay, everything seems to be working fine. Besides screen tearing shenanigans. Ooh. Game Boy Color on a widescreen monitor, completely stretched out. But this game has no problem with some screen tearing going on. Emulation performance seems to be just fine. I'm always getting into the zone when actually playing some Tetris. I love it. You should check out Tricky Towers. It's one of those, not retro games, they're on Steam. But it's absolutely like a very cool, like say, Tetris clone. Where we have like competition between your friends and computers. Try to see how build up the biggest and fastest tower. Let's move on to some Mega Drive gaming. But the same problem continues with different emulator, and I mean when you're looking at different emulators, when you're just starting up the emulator, it stutters like crazy. But also you can just hear that the audio isn't like it's supposed to be. So the overall emulation is quite disappointing. When it comes to the controls, same here, don't notice any, let's say, input lag whatsoever. but the overall performance of the, let's say, gaming and of course the screen tearing are really annoying. So far so good. So when it comes to the Super NES, emulation seems to be working just fine. Didn't notice anywhere screen tearing so far so good. But yep, I can see the screen tearing already going on. But the sound effects, there is no weird... You know what the weirdest thing is? When you're looking at all the emulators where we're having so many problems when booting up, having stutters, like with going into the menu, we don't have any of those issues so far. So Super NES seems to be one of the best emulators so far on this mini game stick. Or game stick 4K. But let's take a close look at the PlayStation emulation, because that is quite interesting that it actually, like I say, it's been on the stick implemented. But you can just hear it stutters. And that is something I've noticed a lot with these game sticks. So it's just a hit or miss. Some of the, let's say, normal, pro, whatever models they call it. But it runs really slow. And we can just hear that it's absolutely unplayable. It's quite unfortunate because it doesn't need to be like this. This can be just a problem with the emulator they're using for this. Also, there's no background music. Oh, absolutely horrible. But moving up to Tekken, it seems to be absolutely better. We do have background music, so that is absolutely one plus. Let's see how the overall gameplay is when getting into the fighting scene. Oh, I can already hear it from the announcer. It's absolutely horrible. Come up. Oh. Oh, I hate Lei so much. It's such an annoying character. But it runs slow Tekken. It's kind of weird. I can remember that I had a game stick similar to this that seems to be running. So there is nothing pro about this thing. It ruins the fun. Where I personally have no connection with Atari, it's kind of cool that they actually like putting it on here. So let's see if I can even boot it up. Okay, wait, what? So the D-pad seems to be working fine. I have no idea what's going on. D-pad analog stick can be used. Okay, it's clear that I suck at this game, but so far it seems to be having some good emulation. Ah! Alright, so let's put in the batteries, and the weird thing is when it comes to these, let's say, controllers and configuration of 4 players, yeah, we don't have N64, we don't have Sega Dreamcast, so that leaves us only with some MAME emulation. So all of the controllers seems to be booting up. This one has been configured. Okay, so this one seems to be working. Let's check out if it's going to be booting up or doing anything. There we go. It does have like this LED is just doing nothing. Okay. All of the controllers have been booted up. Both of these dongles have been plugged in. Let's check out if this final one is doing. Okay. Okay, none of them should be working, or at least like in the main menu. There's no configuration. We can say like, hey, this is going to be controller 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one was player 1? Oh, there we go. So this is play 1. Okay, so let's get into the MAME and let's see if we can get something going on, because there was no 4-player configuration when it comes into the main menu itself. Man, what a mess. The question only remains, what kind of game can we boot up? I have no idea, because it doesn't show everything. So it's not Turtles 4 and 5, so I'm guessing it's going to be one of these. Here says Turtles 1 and 2, but I'm guessing this is for the NES. So let's check out this particular version. It's just a gamble. And let's see if we can boot it up. Okay, so let's check out player 3. I don't know what's going on over here. Player 4. Player 1. This controller is booted up, but doesn't have any communication going on. Let's reset it. And there we go. So that seems to be working fine. So we do have the option for 4 players. Oh, but the emulation is very bad when it comes to this. You can just hear how it stutters. Controller 2. Everything seems to be working fine. Somehow... Oh, there we go. Okay. And there we go. 4-player configuration seems to be working just fine wirelessly. But not a lot of, or at least like any, overall less a delay. But the emulation. Oh boy, my ears are bleeding. Oh. But let's do a quick teardown. Let's see what's inside of this thing. Yeah, opening it up, you can just do it. I don't even need a prior tool. And in here we don't find a lot of, actually like, yeah, a lot of things they changed out. What I did change out, implementing a piece of metal for cooling the chip itself. In here I find the rock chip, the RK3228. Yeah, and that is not like a very new chip, but also not like a super bad one. The overall emulation performance, especially when looking at the 8-bit 16, but this should be running perfectly on this, but yeah, they completely messed it up. The horrible SD cards, they get corrupted automatically. It seems to be this thing is still working, but it's just a matter of time. Yeah. That's it. That's the only thing we're going to be finding in the inside. So let's plug it back in. Because there were no screws whatsoever. You just click it back together. That's it. So this new version, you should avoid it. The $19 or whatsoever I've paid for it is even way too much. They completely destroyed this thing when it comes to the overall emulation performance. Yeah, and this is just how I connected it. They're exactly like connecting it with the, let's say, television I'm having, or at least like the monitor here. Yeah, it's such a disappointment that this 4K game stick, where some of these things were not bad, but some overall good emulation, this is absolutely one of the great examples. What is wrong with these products? None of the games run like it should be. Screen tearing, audio problems, you name it. They completely messed it up. Thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing, hit the little bell, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments.